Hello, in Hale, Scotia. We are here today in the dark because it's after dark here because it's the middle of November. So
Mm-hmm.
it gets dark here around 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And we are here to discuss Hecate's darkness, how she is associated with the night, the down below, the cave, all places dark, the afterlife, the dream world. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you and I have done so much on Hecate's light, her torches, the moon, and so that of course is involved here. But we're kind of emphasizing the darkness. It's like without the darkness there is no light. So let's go into the darkness together.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. We'll need some candles.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do a little ritual to get things started. Feel like this is such a special aspect of Hecate to go into her darkness, like intentionally,
Mm-hmm.
to see it as sacred calling.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us fear the dark. Many of us have fear of the darkness within us, our anger, our rage, our shadows, our past. Many of us also fear our power, and we've shoved it into the dark. We've shoved it into our shadows. Feminine power is terrifying to many people, and we can be conditioned to believe that our power is something that should be in the dark. And yet, our power is the dark, all the things to do with the dark. So, let's release all of that. We're turning out the light switches. And now, let's cast the circle forward and look into the dark. And just see yourself as your eyes starting to adjust and what's important and rich to you will become apparent. And I'll read our invocation. To venture forth without the benefit of the well lit path, to follow the pale torchlight into darkness, to behold the vision that doesn't need eyesight, into the temple of Scotia, where darkness is sacred and the stars come to life. Hail Scotia, that is a specific epithet of Hecate that we're using to connect with her darkness as we go into this realm of sacred darkness. So, babe, guess what?
What?
It has been 8 years since I first wrote an article on Hecate's sacred darkness. And when I originally published it, I called it Her Holy Darkness because, as you know, I like to be a bit of a shit disturber by nature. And was you reclaiming the word holy, but also
Mm-hmm.
kind of knowing that some people wouldn't like my use of the word holy.
Right.
But to me, Hecate is holy, and I don't have a hard time with the
Mm-hmm.
word holy, and
Mm-hmm.
that the darkness is in fact holy. It's sacred.
Yes. I remember you saying the holy darkness is not.
The holy darkness is nigh. I think that was an incantation. Because here we are, all these years later, we're married.
Yeah.
Um, I just felt called to Hecate to start by Hecate to start writing that blog. I had no plans. Certainly didn't ever see myself like 7 years into leading, a large online coven and teaching courses. I had none of this. When I wrote those words, the holy darkness is nigh. I don't even think I knew what I was conjuring.
Well, you wouldn't.
because she wouldn't want me to. Because if I knew all of this, I would have probably said, no, thank you. Um, Not really. You know what I mean? Like that sounds like, am I actually up to all of that? I don't know anything about any of this stuff. Um, I forgot I had said the holy darkness
You
is
did.
nigh. That got some reactions.
Mhm.
Um, but I really, just for me in my own journey through life, like up until that point 8 years ago, but also like I was about 5 years into this deep phase of personal healing and sorting out my own darkness, my own shit. And for me, what has worked, especially when I was in the thick of it, was to learn to see darkness as sacred.
Yeah.
And I don't mean darkness in terms of evil or malevolent. And I don't mean darkness in any kind of like casual, superficial kind of, oh yeah, I love all things dark. I meant like intentionally going into my own shadows
Mhm.
and figuring out, I'm going to be really blunt here, what the fuck was wrong with me,
Yeah.
right?
It's like archetypal darkness.
Archetypal darkness,
Yeah.
and we all have it within us,
Yeah.
and that's shadow healing. So the
Mhm.
holy darkness is to say, like, things have happened to me in my life, that people have done things to me, I have done things to me, and I'm gonna go and do some soul archaeology and
Yeah.
figure out this, and then I'm gonna have the life I feel called to. But you gotta go in
Yeah.
the only way through hell, out of hell. Sorry, I slaughtered that. I'm sorry. The only way out of hell is through
Through it.
hell.
Yeah.
And if you try to bypass it and run through it, you're going to trip and fall and end up there forever. And you got to just take it one step at a time. I used to do this thing, and I would look at um like you know how around here, like when you're like in the village proper, like you know where the bridge is, and you know how it's all like seaweed and kind of muddy,
Mhm.
the ocean, it's like that one spot that it's not really rocky. I used to feel like I was stuck in that seaweed muck, and that was the metaphor that I would use, and be like, I've got to get out of this. Like, in many ways, my life was kind of a mess for a lot of reasons that I'm not going to get into. People had been done things to me that they shouldn't, invalidated, hurtful,
Mhm.
violating things. But I'm just saying, like, that was that moment of like the crossroads where I was like, I'm going to take accountability for this.
Yeah.
Yes, I have been wronged and I have suffered and I have made choices and I'm an adult and I am going to sit in this mud and drag one heavy seaweed cloaked foot at a time through this until I get out of it, because I've had enough. I've had enough of the resentment. I've had enough of giving my power away to people who violated me, people who betrayed me. I've had enough of all of that. That all ends here. And I'm going to do the work, because when I get out of this mud, when I get out of the darkness, I am going to have the life that I believe I am being called to. And it was hard. It was hard work. Like, I
Mhm.
don't just mean psychologically, I mean it was like actual hard work. I I had to do a lot of extra work. Like, it was actually like hard work for money. Like, there was a
Yeah.
lot of things I did um to get out of that shit. But I think it's just like, you got to go into the mud, you got to go into the cave, you got to go into the dark with intention
Yeah.
and say, I'm going to do this because I'm fed up with resentment. I'm fed up with carrying around these wounds.
Yeah.
I'm fed up with all these people who hurt me. having power over me, even though they don't care anymore. To, like they've moved on with their lives. And I'm fed up with making bad decisions. Okay, your turn. Talk
No,
about your holy
I mean,
darkness.
I had a similar, very similar experience. I just want to emphasize what you said about going into it with intention because witches, like, it is not easy. Like, it is not fucking easy. Like, it may be the hardest thing you ever do is to sort of turn inward, and face your own darkness and take the time to be intentional and like excavate and heal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Get the support you need.
Get the support you need,
So,
yes.
if you need
100%.
therapy, if you need medication.
It helped me to sort of I'm not just kind of just isolate a little bit. Just in the sense of like taking time to myself. I'm not saying don't seek support, if you need a support system, but I'm saying like it helped to sort of step outside of the drama around me and, just kind of really sort of like close myself in and like pay attention to what was going on within me. I kind of equate it to like when I'm overstimulated, I like to put a blanket over my head.
You like that's Kristen's sacred darkness.
That's my second. Yes.
And the other night, she threw the blanket over her head and she says, "I'm in here looking for spoons."
Yeah.
Because she likes the metaphor, that you run out of spoons when
Yeah.
you're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So just sometimes you just need to do that, even in those moments of just
Yeah.
regular overwhelm,
Yeah.
right? And taking safety in the darkness that way. I think that's
Yeah.
really powerful.
Yeah. But I remember like the pivot point for myself too. Like I had been living a very what you call like solar
Yeah.
existence, this whole concept of artificial light. And I was very avoidant. Like sad song on the radio, I'm gonna turn that. Like, but then some things happened in my life that like I could not look away from. And I was like, you know what, like this has to end now. Like this has to and I had to sort of like pull those, metaphorically like pull that cover over my head and like go in, and like sort my shit out. Um yeah, yeah.
But here we are
Here we
today
are today.
as evidence that Hekate can help you get through this. And
Hmm.
you can come to a place where you live with security and mercy and to seek understanding and a continued commitment to ever healing, ever growing. But you're right about the need to isolate because I had to do that too. Like I had
Hmm.
to really disengage. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things that like your new life is going to cost you your old one. That's what you
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
And like you have like that is part of the process is like the
Yeah.
sacred darkness. She's with you in the
Yeah.
darkness. And if you have a community or friends that can but your darkness is going to be your darkness.
Yes. Yeah. And I think the thing about that is to look at it as like protective, protect your energy while you do this deep work on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Crawl into that cave.
Yeah. Rein in your resources.
Yeah.
Make the hard decisions to put yourself first.
Yeah.
Because I think that's it. What you can really go into her cave, into her sacred darkness intentionally. You have to have that really brave, scary moment of being like, I choose me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is what is right for me.
Yeah.
There's so much power in that. And go easy, go gently. Be, think of me with one foot in front of the other in the mud and Kristen under the blanket. Like it's not, this isn't a race.
It's not.
Sometime I remember years ago, and I think it was even before you were around, someone said we were doing a meditation to go into Hecate's cave, and one of the participants said afterwards, they said, "Oh, I didn't wait for you to finish getting us ready to go in the cave. I just ran right in." And I was like, "Oh, don't do that. Like you stroll into the cave
Mm-hmm.
with mindfulness
Mm-hmm.
and determination.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no need to hurry
Yeah.
because this is shadow healing.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to wholeness is through the shadow and spiritual bypassing, rushing, jumping around from one spiritual practice to another in an act of avoidance, not looking for what's true and beautiful for you, but in that act of avoidance, like that's, you're going to get stuck. You won't get the momentum. You
Mm-hmm.
won't come from out from under the covers.
Mm-hmm.
You won't slog it through the mud.
Mm-hmm.
You'll just be stuck under there forever.
I like the metaphor of running and tripping.
Right. Can't hurry this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's natural to. Like, I remember I would just be like so exasperated and being like, oh, well, I just want to feel better.
Yeah.
I want to know what it feels like to be, if not happy, at least content. Or maybe at least not feeling resentful, hurt,
Mm-hmm.
violated,
Mm-hmm.
fat, ugly, ashamed of who I was, hiding who I was. I just wanted to not do any of that anymore. Like I was just tired of it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I had like shame. I had just like, if there was like a bulletin board in your life and the things that were like important to me were also things, it was like someone, like the universe, my family, whoever had taken Cindy's little beautiful collage of things she loves. It was like someone had taken a big stamp and put shame, 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 shame over all the things that I am. And I mean, it's hard to get the shame stamp off of things.
It's a process.
It's a process. You got to pick it and peel it off.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the world will do that to you.
Yeah.
But it can be done. And Hecate's torches help you burn off that shame stamp and
Mm-hmm.
say, this is who I am. I am like of the shadows, a creature of the moon, a witch, queer, whatever it is you are. Um, and that's really beautiful and wonderful to me. And the fact that by the world's standards, I might be weird and out there and a failure. It's just like it doesn't apply here. What matters here is that you're comfortable in your own skin suit and you
Yeah.
know as much as possible what's on your insides is how you live your life.
Yeah.
There's no discrepancy. And that I think we get forged in the darkness because that makes us stronger.
Yeah.
And we come out as who we truly are. We get reborn, right? This
Yeah.
is the journey.
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful.
I agree. That said, you want to talk a little bit about soul retrieval or certain aspects of ourself. Like we can find gems in the darkness as well.
Mm-hmm.
Certain aspects of ourself that have maybe been like stashed away or hidden or, like that. I think that's a big element of this too.
I think that's so, so important because the richness is in there. Like
Mm-hmm.
the things that have been invalidated or that we've forgotten because life got in the way,
Yeah.
that get pushed into the shadows, the richness is there too.
Yeah.
And it's like that's part of the excavation process
Yeah.
is to say, this here, this is not an artifact. This is ancient junk. And here, this is a true artifact. This is who I am. I'd always wanted to be a writer. I'd always been interested in spirituality and witchcraft forever, like for my whole life. And that was like the beauty that was in my shadows that had kind of gotten hidden because of trying to be like socially acceptable and accepted by the family and have a mainstream career.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I went in deep, I completely shut the door. And when I started writing the blog, like that was it. Like my career, 20 years was over. So if anyone's feeling about like like there are risks when you go in. You will, it can be really, like there can be a like an apparent toll, but on the other side you'll be like that was worth it, and actually everything is just better now anyway,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That you can go in. Okay. So Hecate has many associations with the night. She has a whole bunch of night epithets. We can put those up for a minute. I think I've got them ready. Here we go. Night epithets. Uh, Melane or Melano or Melena. I know. The darkness. Melanomen is also the darkness. Nyctophania, night shining. Nyctipolos,
Mm.
night wandering. Nychia, nocturnal of the night, also associated with the restless dead, and so on. So she has all of these different ones, and the one when I was developing the course that became Entering Hecate's Cave, that really had vibration and just the dark that lit up for me was Scotia, of the dark, of the gloom. It's
Yeah.
this kind of gloomy, misty, foggy business, and this really, really just held so much potential for me. It was like a velvet embrace, Scotia. So here's the source data for Scotia. There it is in Greek. Um, and this is interesting. I wanted to read this little bit. So this is from Diodorus's history. And near these regions, they say, are also the Shades, which is a temple of Hecate. And I thought that was so interesting, um, because Scotia is about shade. It's about shadow.
Yeah.
It's it's the darkness. It's not just like the pitch black night. It's like the emanation of darkness,
Mm.
like the emanation of light.
Mm-hmm.
Like that Hecate is like that torch, which is an emanation of light. But there's also like the emanating darkness. Like if you ever walk into a dark room for the first time and like you go in the room and you shut the door, it's like the darkness like just wraps you up. Like if the room is, and it's like so darkness emanates too. And I think this is really interesting. But that's the source of that. Um but there's also many epithets of Hecate that link to the night. So we kind of need to, and we've done other recordings on them as well, but just to kind of bring them into this conversation, Cathonia, which means of the earth, often referencing like the underworld, the afterlife, because of course, in the ancient Mediterranean, people believed that the afterlife was in the underworld. It wasn't hell. It was just that's where people go when they die. Um, so Cathonia, Sotera, Savior, very linked to her aspect of Cathonia and the afterlife and the underworld. Psychopomp, which is the guide of souls. Um, so this is her as she's the abiding one, the guide and protector. And I looked up this epithet. You can see it highlighted in blue in the top, and this means it's translated as the Savior who answers prayers. And I thought that really means like she who abides.
Yeah.
And this is like a grave stele or a tombstone that has this really powerful inscription on it. And it's all about like, so Hecate of the darkness, like that's the afterlife, it's the underworld, it's the night, it's all of those places where, like you were saying earlier, it's like where the sunlight can't permeate.
Yeah.
The sunlight is not effective here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's her reference. That's her association, of course, with the moon, and all of that. And I wanted to. So this is the cult of Hecate and Lydia, which is an area of research that we've been working on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Evidence from the Manissa Museum. So this woman did all this amazing research looking at artifacts that were in this museum in Turkey, but weren't like hadn't been studied. They were just kind of sitting around gathering dust, if you will. And she's written this amazing, huge piece full of photos, getting into a lot of previously undiscovered or unknown arc. They were discovered, they were just sitting there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this gets it like one of the notes I wanted to share this note from the text is that Hecate also had a frightening side. Whoever put his or her grave under the protection of the goddess wanted to avoid the dark side of death. So she's both the savior, but at the same time, it's linked to each other. So it goes on, it talks about this, but then the basic point is that you want like to go into the darkness with Hecate. Yes, she was fierce and terrifying, but if you went with her, her powers to frighten and so on were directed to those who would interfere with your transition to
They were
the afterlife.
they were protective.
So they were apotropaic, they were protective. So it's like not evil in the sense that she's out to get everyone and she's bad and malevolent, but in the sense of like if you honor Hecate and she's on your gravestone and you see her as savior, then she becomes the protector. She's not just your guide, but
Mm-hmm.
she's gonna. And this again is like they had a very different concept of the afterlife than the Christians did. But there, she would see you to the other side
Mm-hmm.
safely
Mm-hmm.
because there's lots of spirits. So it was like she was in control of the restless spirits and also would help people to get to the other side. So it's like she was both. She was savior and the darkness
Yeah.
because she was the one who could control troubling spirits and
Mm-hmm.
also unwanted spirits, marginalized people, the restless dead, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were like in this case, um, a quality citizen, whatever that might have meant, she would also help you.
Mm-hmm.
So she has all of these abilities all kind of wrapped into her, but it really gets back to that liminality and like this and Scotia to me is that liminality because when you go into the liminal, it's 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 like a deeper dark than regular dark because it's it's like a void,
Yeah.
right? It's like it's a space that's neither light nor dark. So that's going to be a darker dark, almost like something that we can't perceive,
Yeah.
right? But then her light is always in there. So there's something that I used to be really captivated by, like in terms of like energy work, was like this idea of the void. Like you fall into the void and you can't get out. But Hecate's like the tunnel, like to the other side, like the cave. So she's not a void, but she's gonna see you through because and I think this works in like our own personal healing in that she's gonna help us with our own monsters,
Right.
right? We all got them. And it's
Right.
like that intention, that just to, I'm going to honor you, Hecate, and do this work, guide me. I like surrender to the process, but I go in with my own free will, and she'll see you through. Like she'll point you in the direction of people that can help you, like a therapist or whatever it is you might need, or someone to talk to, or a certain practice that you should be doing. Like she'll lead you where you need to go. And she'll
Mm-hmm.
also help you with those monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Like her dark is so dark. Okay. So why Scotia? Well, that is interesting. We live in Nova Scotia, by the
We
way, the
do.
new
Yeah.
darkness.
Yeah.
We really like that. That's what it means in Latin. Um,
No, can I just follow that up for you
yeah,
though? No, I
sure.
just want to say, like, it's not like Hecate is on the other side with like a big powerful light like shining it at you. Like you have to, like you said, be intentional.
But
Like it
she's
is
with
gonna
you.
be,
Like
she's
she is
with
with
you.
you.
She's with you. But it is gonna be, like we said before, it's gonna be a process. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be an intentional walk through the darkness and maybe some scary shit and maybe some difficult things, but Hecate, like in the way that I see it, like she is the darkness itself. Like she is,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm making
No,
sense.
you're making perfect sense. Okay.
Okay.
Time for history class. Hecate in ancient Egypt. So Hecate was venerated in ancient Egypt, throughout the whole ancient Mediterranean, what we might think of as like the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, all around the ancient Mediterranean. And there is a source text called the Greek Magical Papyri. Here's a photo of it, I believe, from the British Museum. So placing Hecate in Egypt requires a brief detour to possible connections with the similarly named goddess Hecate or Hekate, and also Heka, the deification of magic. So this is interesting. And scholars and non scholars alike have debated this. You and I have debated this. Is there an
Yeah.
association in Egypt predating ancient Hecate in Caria, modern day Turkey? Is this because we know the word Heka and the goddess Hecate is older than the earliest known records of Hecate,
Mm-hmm.
but then Catalhoyuk and everything else that we really haven't unpacked yet.
Yeah, we
Who
haven't even
knows?
scratched the surface.
We've only scratched the surface of all of that. So who knows? It may have been that the Egyptians borrowed things from what was going on in what we call Turkey today, right? Like we don't know. Um, so people say, what I said in this article, Hecate is not Hecate based on the history available, but it very much in a spiritual meaning because Hecate, the goddess, whose worship was very much known in Egypt during the time of the great empire of the Greeks. Hecate was frog-headed, but also I think was involved in midwifery too.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hecate, Aletheia, that was one of her dominant roles across the different regions in the ancient Mediterranean. Heka, the deification of magic. That makes sense when you see Hecate's associated with sorcery and so on, and what we call witchcraft today. Why Scotia? What did Scota is would be the word um, in ancient Greek. So in ancient Egypt, the Greek language had spread, and this is after like the great kind of Egyptian pyramid building age. It's the later era. That we're talking about a few centuries before the Common Era. But there was this legend of Scotia or Scota or Scotia. Scota's actually, I'm going to use Scotia for talking about this, just to be clear so we don't get confused with Scota yet. So Scotia was the daughter of an Egyptian pharaoh during Ramses II. Um, Gathalos, the son of the king of Greek, was exiled in Egypt, where he worked in the pharaoh's castle. He met and married Scotia. They were, however, expelled from Egypt, and they fled to Spain before finding their way to Scotland, hence the name of Scotland. The reasons for their expulsion are as diverse as the versions of the legend, including the death of Pharaoh in the Red Sea during Moses' time. So that this is a legend about the origins of Scotland, and I write about it more in Entering Hecate's Cave in the eponymously named chapter of Scotia. So the story goes on and on. Basically, Scotia or Scota as a figure, and even Scotty. She was most likely a mythic figure, not an actual princess, who had origins in the human wife of a pharaoh, perhaps even the great Tutankhamun. By the time of the ancient temple to Hekate, Scotia, the title referred to the feminist darkness held in high esteem. And then, of course, Skota, the princess in the legends, goes on to form, like, found Scotland, basically, gets involved with a Tuatha De Danann front that you may be familiar with. Um, and her husband was murdered, and then she sought vengeance. And then in some versions of the story, Skota actually becomes the Kaliak, the bringer of winter and the mother of stones. So there's a lot of rich folklore around Skota or Scotia. But there's also this evidence that there was this temple of Hecate, Scotia. I believe there was one to Aphrodite, Scotia, as well in Egypt around the same time. So there's all this kind of folklore, but there's also like the symbolic meaning, and then there's the history of Hecate, that she was psychopomp, like she was concerned with matters of the night, matters of the dark.
Yeah.
And then I want to bring us into James Hillman and Carl Jung and kind of more contemporary ideas about what matters of the night, matters of the shadow, like matters of the dark are,
Right.
right? Um, because like in a psychological or spiritual sense, why why do we, why do we go into the darkness? Why do we go into Hecate's territory? Why do we follow her torches? And you and I have talked a lot about like personal healing and transformation and empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, how do we become whole people? Like, not by denying the darkness that we carry, not denying our shadows, but by going in and understanding it and exploring her country.
Right.
And I think that's really powerful. But I also want to bring in like James Hillman's, and that a lot of that comes, of course, from Carl Jung,
Yeah.
who did the pioneering work on what we now call shadow healing.
Yeah. No, like where the darkness signifies like the subconscious,
Yeah,
like the dream realm, and the shadow.
and the shadow. So it's the things when you think about our own kind of minds in our internal landscape. We've kind of got our everyday thoughts. Like, we all have a running narrative inside of our head all the time saying all kinds of things to us. And that's like easily accessible. That's like what's in the light, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there is like, according to Jung, we have like a subconscious, a darkness that we go into, and that is part of the shadowscape of our life. So there's shadow work and that things that have gotten buried. So we may be really resentful, but we might not know why.
Yeah.
And you go in and you do shadow work and you say, oh, yeah, that is the thing. That is the origin point of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to work on like processing that and letting that go. Because you might think like the surface reason that you're irritated is because there's crumbs on the kitchen counter, or because someone has disappointed you, or because you're not happy at work. And these are all things that kind of float around in the surface, in the light in our mind that we have access to, and that causes stress and so on. But what shadow work is, it's like, what are the things underneath of that? What are the things in the dark that are driving those surface problems? And you go into that, and that's very Hecatean. But also, as humans, there's and James Hillman did a lot of work on this, but I believe Carl Jung in his paper with Karenyi in the 1950s also touched upon this, is that the other feature of Hecate's territory is not just shadow work, but it's also the dreams, like
Yeah.
the realm of the dreams, because the subconscious, the superficial mind is like what we might call solar. Like
Mm-hmm.
it likes rational, it likes lists, it likes cause and effect, linearity, likes these things. But the deeper self, the self of us that is more abiding, that unconscious self or the soul, self with a capital S, it is symbolic and searches for meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So the two, the surface self and the deeper self, until they are integrated, they function like at competing purposes. One wants the easy way out, one wants the meaningful way.
Yeah.
And so it's like when you go into this realm, that's where dreams become so important because that's the language. That's how dreams speak. Like they speak in
Symbolism.
symbols,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Like some people do have more literal dreams, but you know this, babe. Like I do not have little. Like Hecate is never like all like goddessy looking in my dreams, where she's got like a
No.
cloak and she's carrying a
Right.
torch, like she's been like a game show host.
Yeah.
Um,
Same.
and when I wake up, I have to like I have it like I'll have a feeling like, oh, that was an important dream, and
Mm-hmm.
Hecate was showing me something in the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think this is why dream work is a very important aspect of doing shadow work because
Mm-hmm.
that's part of going into our own darkness,
Yeah.
right? And seeing, going into our subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
when our soul and what is deeper there, and then learning to see dreams as like speaking Hecate's language, even if, you know, because I think sometimes we might be like, oh, well, I don't dream about Hecate. Like, I don't see a three form goddess holding torches. It's like, but it's her country. She is there. Like, it is her territory
Right.
because it is the ultimate liminal experience that we have as humans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are, when we are asleep, we're alive dead,
Right.
right?
I just want to just give a nod to like this realm of the underworld, like emotions and intuition are all entwined. Like for me, sometimes I can't remember my dreams specifically, but I pay really close attention to how I feel, like
Mm-hmm.
when I wake up. Sometimes, like, I'll wake up distressed or, just like activated. And I'm like, what was happening there? And then I'll, you know, try to unravel it.
Right? And I think it's trusting in yourself because we
Yeah.
dream every night. So it's like if the dream feels important, spend some time in it.
Yeah.
I mean, I woke
Um,
up this morning I was like, oh, I had these dreams all night long, and you were like, well, do you want to talk about it? I said, I feel like they were just nonsense. Like they were
mm-hmm.
just my brain was neural firing and doing stuff, and I don't think there was anything super important that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I think trust yourself.
What's the statistic? Don't we spend like it's something like around a third of our lives asleep?
We do
Yeah,
in this altered state of
yeah,
consciousness. So let's go into that territory of Hecate's.
yeah.
And
That's
James
powerful.
Hillman really did the pioneering
Yeah,
work on this. And I think there's so much richness there and so much healing there. And
yeah,
again, that's that slow symbolic work,
yeah,
right? It's, you know, it's you wake up in the morning and you hit your voice memo recorder or you make some sketches and it's not going to be something that's solved in 5 minutes. And
right,
oftentimes to look at the symbols of the dream like it's not to solve the dream. It's like you enter into it. That's Hecate's
right,
territory. This isn't a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be explored.
right.
And that's what the dark is.
Yeah,
There's so much
there's so
richness
much.
in her darkness. Um,
Pay
And it's
attention.
protective and it's
Mm-hmm.
sheltering. It's not the weird things that are happening in the world that people will say, oh, that's dark. Like, dark is not evil. Like, evil can be solar, evil
Mm-hmm.
can be lit up, center stage, posing as, the new Messiah or whatnot, right? False prophets will,
Mm-hmm.
claim that they're all love and light, Jesus loves me, and all this other stuff. And if they do evil, it reminds me of that quote. I don't think it was Porphyry. Maybe you'll remember. That, remember? Oh, I wish I could remember this quote. It's, was it Proclus was having like that vision and Hecate came through, and it was at the time that Christianity was just taking hold, and it was like, pity the folly of men.
That's it. Sounds like Proclus.
It does sound like Proclus, doesn't it? Like, pity the folly of men, you know. But that's not evil. Is the dark is not evil.
Yeah.
The dark is safe and nurturing, intuitive. It's the womb, it's the cave, it's the place where we can really go into the mysteries,
Mm-hmm.
not to solve them or capitalize on them, but I think the healing comes like through the exploration, like being the seeker. The
Mm-hmm.
journey is the healing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's and there's so much into this, um, with a side of a folk tale and an ancient temple of Hecate called Scotia that really captivated me. So, like I said, there's a chapter Scotia in Hecate's cave, and also in Covina, we have a whole month called Scotia when we go into like a deepening journey as we get started, in the season of soul retrieval. And I think that's really what we call back in the dark. We need the stillness, we need the dark, we need Hecate, we need our dreams. We need to be a little bit like Skota, and be brave and fight for what's right for us. And and then on the other side, we might become like the Kaliak, old and wise and powerful beyond measure, right? Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us. You got anything else you want to add?
No, I think you said that perfectly.
Okay.
Nova Scotia.
Hail Scotia.